to kind of transition from that to an extent, but really stay on the same point. I mean, so we understand that. We understand there's the the condition of Black America is not an accident. It's not a circumstance of their personal failures. It's something deeper, something more entrenched, and something more systemic than that, right? It's something that's being imposed on them as opposed to something they just are responsible for. But tie that into, like, when people talk about the role of religion, right? When they talk about the role, especially of us as Muslims, the role of Islam, usually people see it as a means of personal development, right? They see it as a very individualistic thing. I want to be a good person, and therefore I will do this, 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 and this, right? And it's a very individualistic way of, thinking of or conceptualizing of spirituality, right? As a Muslim, as a Black person, as a Muslim, as someone who carries both the burdens of being a person of color, being particularly a person of, in the Black community, and then also being a Muslim that is connected to the global suffering of this ummah. What is your take on this kind of fix yourself obsession that people who articulate religion, especially our religious leaders, especially our religious scholars, whenever they're presented with an issue of oppression, whether it be, the condition of the Black community, whether it be, the situation of the Muslims all over the world, whether it be what's going on in Syria or Palestine or Kashmir or any of those places, or Somalia or, Mali, any of these places, what do you think of their typical response, which is fix yourself? If you were to just change, your behavior, if you were to just become a better person, were nicer to your mom, were, more observant in your prayers, that would somehow alleviate oppression. Does individual behavior alleviate oppression, and should that be the message that religious people or religious leaders give to their audiences?
Well, no, of course it doesn't. And like just to start off with that, being a good person, being a morally upright person doesn't change the society around you, right? So you could be the most truthful and morally upright person. What you need to do in order to change the society around you is you need to change the ideas. You need to change the structure, right? So, like this whole looking inwards and fixing yourself, it's always easier to tell the people they're doing wrong, than to actually attack the root of it, right? Because a lot of time it's hard to like people who don't like they're not trained to in that type of like field or whatever, and it's hard to like articulate it,
So you're saying it's hard for religious leaders who may not be trained in political analysis, who may not understand systems of oppression, it's hard for them to articulate a coherent, logical, eloquent attack on the system. Much easier to just say, be nice to your mom.
Yeah, and absolutely. And it's always easier to take the least path of resistance, right? Yeah. Because that doesn't require the mobilization of the masses, right?
Sure.
So
sure.
It's
which is a much more dangerous conception of religion.
Yeah, it's harder, right? And it takes a lot more organization. It's easier to get up on a pulpit and just say, hey, be a better person to your mother, right?
Yeah. By the way, we love our mothers. We keep saying that.
Yeah, we love our mothers.
Ami is very important to me. I know she's watching this.
But that won't change your environment. That won't change your society, right? Yeah. That actually takes like organized social movement that has like a method behind it.
Okay. And I guess, Malik, you're someone who was born in this country and have kind of consumed the kind of North American Muslim experience for, a longer time than other people on this table. I'm not going to say how much longer. And so I want your take on this. As someone who's seen this for a while, what do you think? Is it the same trend? Has it always just been that, where it's anytime something happens in this ummah that is supposed to shake us up, whether it be what just happened in Aleppo or whether it be the absolute rash of deaths we've seen in the African American community, which is at the end of the day I don't want to make this clear, for Muslims in North America, the African American community is our community. It's a community that we have deep roots in. It's a community that is built of masjids and Muslims and leaders and speakers and scholars, and it's a community that is very dear to us. And so when we see this kind of violence happening against the African American community, when we see what's happening with the global ummah, what is your take on this continuous fix yourself messaging?
Well, it's parallel to what Abdul Qadir said, right? It's that that the emphasis is on the individual aspects of Islam, which of course we all agree are important. As you said, we all respect our parents, we all respect our mothers, we all agree that we have to, an obligation is an obligation is an obligation, right? So it doesn't matter if it's individualistic or it's otherwise, and that's the thing is that's unfortunately the focus, right? And what it is that when we pray 17 times a day, we say اهدنا الصراط المستقيم, guide us to the straight path, right? And what we need to realize is that the straight path involves us in understanding. Some people refer to it as the political aspects of Islam, which I think is I don't know if that's a correct term to apply to it, but it's the communal aspects, the kind of the aspects of which govern the common that is between us, right? So when we look at it, for example, like when we have our Muslim booth, right? Like when people come and talk to us, one of the ways I find to engage is to show them how Islam can lead us forward in terms of these types of thinking. And the reason why that's important, especially for the speakers, the ones who take on that responsibility, which Allah will hold them accountable for when they get in front of that pulpit and address the audience and address the congregation, is that it helps them to give you that vision. And that's what I find is kind of very important about this, is that Islam gives you vision, right? When you look at the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and you look at his life, and you understand that what he built in Medina was something amazing and something that is part of the straight path that will lead humanity forward, you begin to see and realize the importance of where the individual ends and where the system begins, right? And so you don't come to these superficial sort of analysis as to for example, as we were talking about blaming the black family or blaming Muslims for whatever oppression whatever we're facing as Muslims and whatever the African Americans are facing as African Americans.
I guess so. For a clarification on that, then, why do you think that happens? Though, why do you think it's so? I mean, Abdul Qadir has an interesting theory where it's just easier to get on the pulpit and blame people as opposed to blame systems. But do you think there's something deeper going on there? Do you think there's something that's almost in the water that we've all been consuming that allows us to see things more individualistically as opposed to collectively? I mean, that allows us to see something that is so obviously collective. I mean, the Quran is so obviously talking about an ummah. So even the verse you mentioned, اهدنا الصراط المستقيم, regardless of whether a Muslim is praying individually or collectively, we say, guide us to the straight path. It's a dua for all of us, not for the individual person.
Right.
And we say it, how many times a day, right? And so even when we can take the thing that is so obviously not just an individual experience, which it is, but a collective obligation as well, what makes it so easy for scholars or for leaders or for anyone who's articulating Islamic solutions to make it sound so individualistic?
Well, as you said, it is in the water, right? And it is in everywhere we go, and that is the sort of and it kind of proves the point, because that's how we all come to the same consensus as who told us that the problem is to lies at the individual's feet. Well, it's when you go to school, when you turn the TV on, when you watch Netflix, when you watch YouTube, when you watch the news report. That's what the constant message that's being hammered, right? And that's the point of a system. Like, why do you think the Koch brothers spend billions of dollars every year trying to get their message out? Because they realize that you have to get the message out. We have to collectively believe in ideas, right? And the Koch brothers understand that. I know it sounds a bit of a paradox, because the Koch brothers are billionaires who believe in individualism and libertarianism, which is the focus on the individuals, but that's the reality of it. If they don't focus on the public mind and get everyone to agree with their ideas, then the public will shift to a different course of action, which is things they don't like perhaps because the Koch brothers are involved with oil,
Sure.
and things like that. So therefore that they if you have a more because the millennials are more environmentalist in their orientation.
Sure.
So this will do that. And so then when it comes to the Muslim community, we are as part of the same. We're subject to the same propaganda system, right? And we're
So
subject.
I guess just to play on that example, because I found it incredible. You're saying that the hardened individualists, like the libertarians, understand the importance of collective action to a greater extent than people who've been trained in the collective tradition of Islam?
Yeah, it's ironic. But that's the thing is that when you want to be effective, that is what you have to study. You have to study reality, right? And when you look at Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what you realize, he never had a mass movement, right? He didn't go convince each Meccan individually of what had to be done, right?
Yeah.
He addressed Makkah collectively, right? And when you look at when Abu Bakr may Allah be pleased with him became the Khalifa, the only town that stayed with him was Makkah. So where did that come from? Was that collective, movement that he had addressed the common mind of Quraysh.
Yeah.
And that's what enabled them, right? That's what inspired them to, his actions and this thing. Despite him not fixing them individually, he fixed them as a collective, right?